and welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I am Melissa.
I am Luke.
And we are here discussing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, chapter number 10, The Marauders Map. This chapter was a whopping 28 pages long, which is 9.06% of the book.
And now, a voice of the Imaginary Legion.
Chapter 10, Bandit's Blueprint. We begin this chapter with Harry, still in the hospital wing after his fall. Many of his friends, including Hagrid, the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and of course Ron and Hermione, are visiting him throughout the weekend, attempting to brighten his spirits. These attempts, however, are wildly unsuccessful, as Harry's mind is controlled by the horrible thoughts of the evil Grim, Sirius Black, and of course, the realization that the voice behind the scream, accompanied by the Dementors, is that of his own mother's death. The days following his release from the hospital wing were not much brighter, as Malfoy continues to harass Harry with his now two-handed Dementor impressions. A turning point comes as Professor Lupin recovers from his unnamed illness and returns to his post as the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Lupin meets with Harry after one of his classes to discuss the unfortunate Quidditch match and discloses more of the true natures of the Dementors to Harry. After learning that it's the horrors of his past that the Dementors are after, and not his own magical insufficiencies, Harry pleads with Lupin to teach him how to fight the Dementors, to which the professor agrees. With the promise of the Dementor training coming in the next semester, and Harry and Ron staying around for the winter, Harry's mood begins to shift into a more positive light. As the fall months wrap up and the winter break approaches, the students have one more opportunity to visit Hogsmeade. As usual, Harry is forced to stay behind, but before the rest of the students leave, Fred and George Weasley bestow on Harry their most prized possession, the Marauders Map, developed by previous mischievers, Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. The map features the entire layout of Hogwarts, all passages known and unknown, and most importantly, it shows the footsteps, names, and travelings of those who walk in the castle. After receiving his present, Harry immediately heads to Hogsmeade through a passage pointed out to him by the Weasley Twins. It doesn't take long for Harry to meet up with Ron and Hermione in Honeyduke's, a sweet shop chock full of candies that would make Dudley swoon. After a while, the three head to get some butterbeer and the Three Broomsticks, when they are quickly interrupted by Professors McGonagall, Flitwick, Hagrid, as well as the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. After being hidden from a Christmas tree thanks to Hermione's reliable quick thinking, they eavesdrop on the adults' conversation. Through the group, Harry learns about the special friendship held between his father and the criminal Sirius Black ever since their time at Hogwarts together. He also learns that Black, the one wizard whom his parents trusted above all else, was in fact the one that betrayed them to the Dark Lord Voldemort. Harry and his friends learn many details about the fatal night when Voldemort visited his parents' home that perhaps they may have never actually wanted to know.
So, compared to some of the previous chapters, we had several character introductions this chapter. Character introductions that I saw were Davy Gudgeon was mentioned. Mm-hmm. We also have somewhat of an introduction, a introduction from Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. I don't know if that's a meeting them, but we kind of get their handwriting, at least, which is interesting.
And some speaking-ish?
Right, yeah. I don't know how that qualifies. We'll talk about the Marauders Map as we go. But
okay.
We also, again, kind of meet the Honeydukes man and woman. They're there. They're more of mentions than anything, but they're live in the scene. But we do actually meet Madame Rosmerta.
So we don't really get any new location introductions, as in we don't go anywhere we hadn't already heard of, but we do visit some places we hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. We actually get to go to Hogsmeade.
Right.
Legally or illegally. Right. We actually get to go into the Three Broomsticks. We actually get to go into Honeyduke's. Mm-hmm. We've heard of all these places, but we got to see them this time, so that was nice.
Correct. Yeah. So, outside of those, I found a ton of magicabulary. Do you want to just go back and forth on this? Because this is going to take a couple minutes.
All right. So I'm going to start with just the Marauders Map.
Okay.
It's a map.
Yep, it's a map. And then we have the Hinky Punk, which is a little one-legged creature who looked as though he were made of wisps of smoke, rather frail and harmless looking.
Then we have the Shooting Star, which is the old school broomstick that Harry was practicing on since he no longer had his.
We have the statue of One-Eyed Old Crone.
There is Descendium, the spell you need to have the statue move.
Our first of a whole list of candies is Jelly Slugs.
Shimmering pink squares of coconut ice.
Fizzing Whizbees.
Honey-colored toffees.
Are we skipping creamy chunks of nougat?
Oh, I missed that one.
These two.
Oops.
We'll skip those.
Yeah, you can throw it in there.
Creamy chunks of nougat.
Hundreds of different kinds of chocolate.
Levitating sherbet balls.
Drooble's best blowing gum.
Tooth flossing string mints.
Pepper imps, breathe fire on your friends.
Ice mice, hear your teeth chatter and squeak.
Peppermint creams shaped like toads, hop realistically in the stomach.
Those are so funny. The ones, the brand names with the slogans.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
There are fragile sugar spun quills.
Exploding bonbons.
Blood-flavored lollipops.
Blah. And cockroach clusters.
Yeah. Then there was, I don't know if we've had this mentioned before, but we are in the proximity of Zonko's joke shop.
Yeah. We get Mobiliaris. I don't think I said that right.
Mobiliarbus.
See? Nope. Me and pronouncing. Not good friends. It moves things.
It moves things.
There we
Apparently
go.
differently than Wingardium Leviosa. Who knows? And then we also have Gilly Water.
We have the Secret Keeper, whose job it is to protect the...
Fidelius Charm.
There you go. We also get to hear about the Hit Wizards from the Magical Law Enforcement Squad.
Hit Wizards. I think that's funny.
I think that's great.
And we also hear of Cornelius Fudge's old job as the junior minister in the Department of Magical Catastrophes.
Ooh, okay, breathe. Everybody take a drink.
Yeah, that was quite a bit of magicabulary. I think
It's been a while since we've had quite that much.
maybe the most we've had since the original Journey from Platform 9 3/4, where we had all of those candies and we had a lot of new characters as well. But I am going to take a drink right now.
Me too. All right. While you take a drink, I'm going to jump into the illustration discussion. It looks like a piece of paper, and it says Hogwarts on the top.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what
It looks like there might be little stairs and some sketchy drawings. It's obviously an old piece of parchment. I'm sure it's the map.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's definitely a little tattered. Looks a little worn, like it's been folded and reused and unfolded plenty of times.
Right. I think it is well loved.
Yes.
As most things that are read over and over again look.
Right. Probably like your Harry Potter books.
Yes. All the pieces of the book that I'm reading
your
now.
4-piece book.
My 4-piece book 3. Oh, it's so sad. I need to replace it. It's just sad.
Let's get into some of your notes on this long, long chapter.
Ooh, and I have long, long notes. I'm sorry. First of all, I'm just going to start really quick. I love Ginny's card.
It's pretty cute, isn't it?
It is very cute that she sends him a card, and very brave Ginny. I like that.
And it sang.
It's like my...
Right? It was a singing card.
I think so.
Yeah, and because it said he had to basically keep it underneath the bowl of fruit to keep it from popping open and singing. And I remember when those Hallmark cards came out, like around 2004 or 5 or whatever, that you'd open up and they start singing, and then like the battery would start to die, which makes me think of like, well, if the charm wears off or something, does it sound Like,
Right.
batteries
Well,
die.
and there are some like trick cards you can get now. You think you have to order them online that, how a lot of those cards, you open it up, it plays, and you shut it, it stops.
Mm-hmm.
There are some cards that once you open it up, no matter what you do, it doesn't stop.
That's
like
funny.
for hours. It just keeps going even if it's closed. This is what that card reminds me of.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I do think it's a little disturbing that Harry realized he heard his dead mother.
Yeah, that's gotta be uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah. Like, do you want to keep hearing her? Do you want to hear her? Are you like messed up from hearing her? It's just a really uncomfortable place for him to be in. So I think I would be pouting in the hospital wing too. I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, I have no idea, what that would be like, and I'm very glad that I don't. But it's a tough mental space to be in. I mean, he's already pretty distraught over, his prized, precious broom being destroyed, but then like on top of that, realizing what this voice that you're hearing in your head, what it really is, that's pretty disturbing for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump a little bit. And as we start getting back into classes, I'm really excited that Malfoy is finally fully recovered. Good job, Malfoy. Finally being recovered in November from your attack on the second day of September from a flesh wound.
Right. Yeah. Good job. Good job, Draco. You finally toughened up.
Ish.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, he just needed both hands to adequately make fun of Harry is what it was.
Because really priorities.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do like...
Sorry, one thought on when Harry was still in the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey really wants to throw away the scraps of the Nimbus, and he refuses to let her. Of course he doesn't let her throw those away. I mean, yeah, just because it's, broken and irreparable, like, why would you get rid of that? I mean, I don't know. I get that some people probably would, at least... so he doesn't think about it as much. Mm-hmm. But, like, we know how much that broom means to him. So it's going to take more than it just being broken to discard it. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think Madame Pomfrey is being a typical adult in that, saying, like, you don't need this anymore. Let's get rid of it. But, I mean, this was his first big purchase, really, on, and... it was a big deal, and it was a traumatic event for him. So yeah, no, I would probably hang on to it for a little while too.
It was probably the first thing he was ever really proud to own, like he had all of his school supplies, and maybe his wand would be the only other thing, or Hedwig.
Yeah.
Like those would be like the three things that he has that if he just saw it laying around at the Dursleys' house, like that can actually bring back memories of what it's, when he's trapped there at the Dursleys' house, right, as to what it's like being in the magical world.
And really, like, if you think about it, back in book 1, everybody knew him because he was, the famous Harry Potter, famous for something that he didn't even remember. Yep. And yet people got to know him because of his Quidditch skills, which, not that he's attributing it directly to just the type of broom, but it contributes to that. It's part of that. And that's hard. It's a hard piece of himself to let go of.
It's one of his major tethers.
Right. All right. I'm going to move on to Lupin's class really quick. He's back again.
Yeah.
Feeling better.
Finally.
Again. I really like the debate about, like, but he made us do this, and it was this many pages, and I can't believe it. And finally he's like, guys, it's okay. You don't have to do it. I'll talk to Snape. And then Hermione freaks out. Wait, I don't have to do it, but I've already done it. I already finished it. And that's when she gets upset. She was fine until then, but she gets upset because, wait, I already did the work. I just think that's very Hermione.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me a lot of the end of, was it book 2 where they canceled exams, the final exams?
Yes.
And she was really upset, or, all of that. And it's very Hermione that I'm already ready for it. So why not just give me the test? Can I still turn it in?
Right.
It's definitely playing into what Snape calls her out on, her show-off mode.
Right.
A bit.
I think, I mean, we've talked about this before. I feel like she's really stepped it up in book 3.
Yeah.
I think her stress level is high, and she doesn't have an outside thing to focus her energy on like she did in book 2 with the attack on Muggleborns and just in general trying to solve that mystery. She doesn't have
And being
that.
petrified.
Right. I'm just saying, because up until the petrification, that's what she spent her extra energy on. And
Right.
since she doesn't have that to focus that on, all of her energy goes to schoolwork. And it just does not, it doesn't make for a pretty Hermione.
Yeah, she's looking
She's a little
rough.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts about Lupin's class?
He just is such a great teacher. Like, again, he's teaching them really interesting stuff, and I like to see that. And not only the in-class stuff, it's the after-class conversation he has with Harry. You know, he gives Harry a chance. You know, he talks about it. It was the first time that he's seen him after the Quidditch match, and he kind of levels with him that, hey, I realized that probably meant a lot to you. And, you know, he kind of checks in on Harry, which is a really good mentor move, too. It's not just a teacher move. It's a mentor thing.
Right.
He's checking on the person, not just the student. And Harry doesn't have too many opportunities with the adults in his life to have that. I mean, yeah, we've seen him, you know, after books 1 and 2, after his big showdowns. Dumbledore's the one that's there, but it's very brief. And those are big, big things that if Dumbledore wasn't there, it'd be like, well, someone should be here talking to Harry. Like, don't leave him alone thinking about whatever just happened. So, like, it's nice to see that even on these little things, that it clearly bothered Harry that he didn't get a chance to face the Dementor. And Lupin levels with him that, hey, I thought it would be a bad idea for this other reason, different than what you were thinking. It's not, I didn't think you were capable. Like, that's the farthest thing from the truth. Like, I didn't want everyone else in the room to be terrified.
Right. I like that as they're discussing the Dementors, that Harry becomes insistent upon having anti-Dementor lessons. It really shows a determination on his part to solve this problem, work his way through, kind of regardless of how hard it may or may not be. Like, this is what I know I need. Can you help me with this? So again, as a good mentor, like Lupin says, maybe with reservation, but sure, like, we can try this. So I appreciate both Lupin's agreement and Harry's insistence upon, I gotta fix this problem. This is not something I should have to live with. So
yeah, definitely. I agree.
Then we get to the Marauders Map.
Oh, man, I love the Marauders Map.
I do too. You know, there's been a couple chapters so far in this book that I've been like, I really like this chapter, but it's really hard to top Fred and George and the build up to handing this piece of amazing thing over to Harry. It just, that's a pretty awesome moment.
This is one, this whole chapter is one that, like, when I think back through the entire series, this one's always stuck out to me. Like, when he goes, you know, running through the tunnel, he describes it as looking like a bunny, you know, hole as he's going through the tunnel, and after he's got the map, and it's just like, okay, this is another one of those big magic moments in the story, I think. You know, he gets this really impressive tool, and it just opens up all of these possibilities for him. And I really like where I like the map quite a bit.
All right. So we use the map. And right before he uses the map, Harry has a moment of a little bit of integrity that says, oh, wait, Mr. Weasley said not to trust an object that you can't see where it keeps its brain. And I like that moment. And then he squashes that completely, and the child in him takes over and says, nah, it's fine. I'm going to be fine. Fred and George have been doing this. No big deal. I got this. But that little moment of like, oh, he was listening. Then he chose not to pay attention to it. But he did hear it.
He rationalizes it a bit, you know?
I mean, I agree. And it wasn't a bad rationalization.
It's not like he's blatantly saying, well, you know, I don't really care what Mr. Weasley said. That is childish.
Right.
I know what you're saying, but I feel like he didn't Dudley Dursley it.
No, I just think it was, I don't think his rationalization was necessarily accurate. It was like faulty logic. Well, they were fine. So, and don't get me wrong, I do that all the time. I just think I like that there was at least that moment of hesitation, which you would not find on the part of Fred and George Weasley.
Right, yeah.
Not even a little bit.
I think the Weasley twins are in tip-top shape when they're handing the Marauders map over to Harry. You know, it goes through the whole discussion of, you're pulling my leg and all of this. Like, Harry is not believing that it can be that impressive of a thing that they're giving him. Because one, like, why would you give it up if it was that impressive? And two, like, it looks like just a piece of paper. Like, come on. Like, what's so special? And they do a good job of, kind of showing him how it works. And it's pretty obvious how cool of a tool this is, like, instantly. I don't know. They're just continually very supportive friends, and they know he's been feeling pretty bad about not being able to go to Hogsmeade and being the only one left out. So it's another pretty good time that they treat Harry like a younger brother and kind of take him underneath their wing and say, yeah, sometimes rules are maybe unnecessary because it makes, in the way Harry's interpreting it is like, well, this is making my life worse by not being there. And they just take it bull by the horns. Okay, well, let's fix that problem for you. Here, you have this.
Right, done. So then he gets to go to Honeydukes, which is great. How do you think a sweet shop like Honeydukes manages to stay in business in such a small town like Hogsmeade? Typically, you find those kind of sweet shops in places like theme parks or like very touristy towns that get a lot of high traffic, because I would say a candy shop is not something you just go to on your general marketing day, market day. So how does it stay in business when Hogwarts students only get to go there a few times a year?
Well, we do know that one of the two places that they saw right when they walked out the door, which to me means pretty close proximity to this store, was the post office. So I'm thinking they have mail order, trade between Hogwarts, the castle, and here. So I'm thinking they probably have a pretty good owl business.
Excellent. That answers that question. So I really just want to get into the discussion that we overhear the adults having, because that to me is like the meat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, cool things happen, but that's where, exposition is, and it's good exposition. But before we start talking about their story, can we just compare their drink orders?
Yeah, definitely. Do you have it pulled up there?
I am very close. Here we go. So we have a small gilly water, which goes to McGonagall. 4 pints of mulled mead. That's half a gallon, by the way.
It's quite a bit.
Half a gallon.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. I know. I know exactly how much 4 pints of mulled mead is.
4 pints of mulled mead. And that's, of course, Hagrid. A cherry syrup and soda with ice and an umbrella.
The umbrella was important.
And that's Flitwick. And then we have a red currant rum for the Minister of Magic. It's just so true to character.
Do you know what mulled mead is?
I'm going to defer to you on the exact definition of mulled mead, being somewhat of an expert that you are.
Somewhat. So mead, obviously, is sometimes called honey wine. So it's water, honey, and yeast that you then ferment. But mulled mead is when you add spices and you warm it as well. So it's for a nice cold day like this. Yeah, that's mulled mead or mulled wine. Pretty good choice. It might seem weird to have like hot wine, like almost boiled wine, but pretty good stuff.
Okay.
And 4 pints of it, yeah, that'll knock you on your butt. That's definitely a Hagrid style order. It's
right.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
If it were me, I'm looking at these 4 and I'm thinking, like, which one would I choose? And I really think I would go with Flitwick's.
Yeah.
Like, I would have the cherry syrup and soda with ice. Like, that would be me. That's what I would order.
So it's like cherry Sprite, or I guess it's more like club soda, maybe?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, mine would be more likely to be a vanilla Coke with no ice, but it's the same general spirit.
Right. That's not a spirit, it's a soda.
No, look, okay, the same general liquid. Right.
Yeah. So Fudge's order, the red currant rum. Currants are a type of berry. So it's like a double sweet, double fruity rum, I would imagine. I've never had it, but that sounds pretty good. I'm gonna go with the Mulled Mead, though. I'm quite partial to mead, so
Do you really think you would need 4 pints?
I would spread it out over more than just one, order at least.
Oh, and then you would need a ride home.
Yes, yeah.
Excellent.
At least Professor McGonagall will be there to maybe help me out, or I guess Flitwick could just Wingardium Leviosa me back up to school.
And all the way up. Oh, that's funny. With his cherry syrup and soda, does that make
He's the DD.
The designated wander?
Right. Yeah. Leviosa.
There you go. So then they start talking, and I really feel like this is the first time in the series we get a very good view of what life was like when Voldemort was in power the first time.
Yeah, it's the first, throwback scene to something that actually happened, in that time period. We have a lot of brief mentions of what it was like, but no actual scenes. So I agree with you here.
Well, and the other thing that's really noticeable is that they're not talking to children. Nothing's being watered down. Nothing's being kind of just the facts and no opinions. It's very much just adults who lived through it talking about how scary it was to live through it without worrying about having to explain it to kids.
Right.
Because adults talking to each other sounds a lot different than adults trying to talk to kids and be sort of the strong, calm one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to get that perspective for the first time. And
it's something that you've really opened my eyes up to on this reread is how good the adults are at being adults. How realistically they are adults. They're not just, older character in the story who's boring and doesn't do anything. They're fully fledged people. They're developed characters. And this is another, one of those instances where you can see, if you were sitting around the teacher's lounge, you're going to hear a different conversation than if you're, in the classroom. And if you're out with those teachers at the bar, you're going to have an even different conversation. And that's the conversation we're getting here. And I think it's really well done by JK to give that variety in her adult characters.
Right.
It's very realistic.
Speaking of the difference between what you hear in Teacher's Lounge and what you hear in class, there was a moment, and I'm going to find the line. So Harry was under the table listening in because, and, where is it? Here we go. They're talking about Pettigrew. And, well, I'm going to say that part first. So Pettigrew, said Madame Rosemart is talking, the fat little boy who was always tagging around after them at Hogwarts, after James and Sirius. Does that feel like a Neville Longbottom all over again?
Yeah.
The round-faced boy. The fat little boy. The first time I read this, it very much became, I see. Pettigrew is Harry's dad's Neville.
Right. But Neville doesn't really chase him around. It's, he's not tailing him
no,
what it sounds like at least.
Again, it's that description. It's always the forgetful round-faced boy. Now it's the fat little boy. And quite frankly, if you've got the big round face, I sort of always pictured him as a roly-poly kid.
Uh-huh. Right.
So to me, it's very much the equivalent, a similarity.
Sure, definitely. I see the comparison.
Right. And they're talking about how he was the one who was killed by Sirius Black. And then there's a moment. And McGonagall says, never quite in their league talent-wise. I was often rather sharp with him. You can imagine how I regret that now. She sounded as though she had a sudden head cold. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are so used to her being tough as nails that even when, and I'm assuming this description was really from the point of view of them listening into, so the narrator is filtering what they're hearing through the lens of Harry and Ron and Hermione listening. Mm-hmm. They so much see her as a tough as nails cookie that they can't imagine she would be crying. She must be getting sick.
Right. Yeah.
That's gotta be why she sounds all stuffed up and verklempt.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I agree that they think she's tough as nails. I don't believe they actually thought she had a head cold. I think they probably realized what that meant, but it's an interesting way for the narrator to describe, how that sounds. You're you get kind of choked up a little bit, and I don't know. I feel like they're not that dumb.
I disagree with you. I think Hermione is probably not that dumb, but Harry, who can't even see, You know what I mean? And come on, Ron, God bless him. He's kind of thick.
I don't know.
I do think it's very possible. It's very possible that they would have like no concept of that even being a thing.
I'm not buying
And
it.
especially without Harry being able to witness her like physically crying, I think that it would be like, oh, she sounds like she has a head cold, and they might catch on, but their initial reaction is not going to be the fact that
Initial reaction, yeah, but
Well,
I think
and
knowing the
that was the
context of
initial
the
reaction
conversation, I think there's no way that they're going to miss that because Harry's so worked up. I don't know. It's
I don't know. I tend to think that it's it takes them a bit to catch on.
And there's another line a little bit after this. Do you have that one pulled up?
It says, Professor McGonagall blew her nose and said thickly, "Stupid boy, foolish boy. He was always hopeless at dueling. Should have left it to the ministry."
There's one even after that I'm looking for, where it says all 5 people blew their nose. Fudge's voice stopped abruptly. There was, okay, let me get back a little bit. A crater in the middle of the street, so deep it had cracked the sewer below, bodies everywhere, muggles screaming, and Black standing there laughing, with what was left of Pettigrew in front of him, a heap of blood-stained robes and a few fragments. Fudge's voice stopped abruptly. There was the sound of 5 noses being blown. "Well, there you have it, Rosmerta," said Fudge. Black was taken away by 20 members of the magical law enforcement squad, and Pettigrew received the Order of Merlin First Class, which I think was some comfort to his poor mother. Black's been in Azkaban ever since. I just have a hard time not thinking that they would realize, yeah, this is a pretty emotional thing that all of these teachers are talking about.
I'm not saying by that point they didn't. I'm saying at first, I think it took them a little further down in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it just depends on who you think the narrator is. Is it really Harry's perspective? Is it something else? We've seen it be a pretty omniscient narrator before. That's why I think it's just an authorial thing more than a perception thing. I don't know.
All right. Do you have any other notes for this chapter?
One quick little note from earlier on. We see that some of the other Quidditch matches have happened, and I forget exactly which team lost, but whichever way it's worked out, the Gryffindors are kind of still in the running, and it's nice to see that Oliver is also back on form, and they're training hard again. So he's not too down in the dumps after that devastating loss.
This is good.
Yes.
All right. Luke, you got any questions?
Yes.
It's time to ask some questions.
I got some questions. Burning, yes.
Okay.
What Honeydukes candy would you sample first?
Ooh.
Long list.
Luckily, you have them all written here.
I know, right?
That is excellent. I want the sugar spun quill.
Okay.
Nothing fancy.
Yeah,
I just like eating pure sugar.
I think I'm going to go with the peppermint creams shaped like toads. Hop realistically in the stomach.
See? That to me sounds nausea-inducing.
Oh, I love peppermint, though.
The hopping in my stomach.
Which is weird, because isn't peppermint like one of those, like, it's supposed to make your stomach feel better?
Mint is ginger's a little better, but you can like suck on peppermints.
So it's offsetting.
Try. Right. Okay. Maybe there you go. All right.
Where would you go first if you had the Marauders Map? I guess in the castle, or...
Can I use the secret passageway and go get me some candy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Candy. I want candy. Candy, candy, candy.
Okay. I think...
You?
I think I just want to explore some of the other passageways that are on there. You know, like, hey... Let's see if there's a faster way to get all the way to North Tower, where Trelawney's, classroom is.
Right? Be practical.
Holy cow! That's probably what interests me most. Or if, say, hey, I wonder if the Chamber of Secrets is on here. Come on, Fred George, you could have helped us out last year. I don't know.
Or even hey, instead of causing a diversion in Snape's class, maybe we could have just snuck into his private stores.
When we know he's not there.
Yeah. Man, this really opens up a whole bunch of their problems that they've run into in the past. Oh, we got to get in there? Done.
Right. There goes the question.
Right. I got to distract Flitwick? Book 1? Hold on. Let me find him. Oh, you're good. He's nowhere near there.
Right. Question 3. Would you have kept the map or told the teacher? Hermione suggests to turn it in. Ron suggests, that's crazy.
I think I would probably just keep the map. I tend to be a ask forgiveness rather than permission type of person most of the time.
Okay.
Sort of. So, of course, I don't really do anything wrong too often because I'm afraid of getting in trouble. But
right.
I think I would be more likely to just keep it. I probably wouldn't use it very often, but I would keep it.
Yeah, I would absolutely keep it. No doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I see the reasoning behind, hey, it would be really cool if the teachers had this, then it could help them keep everyone safe for, Sirius Black getting in. But at the same time, can't Harry and Ron and Hermione do that too? Especially if Sirius is going after Harry. I don't know. I guess it's just going to depend on if Harry's actually going to use it that way.
True.
Question 4. Do you think Dumbledore's anger really could be keeping the Dementors at bay? And I can read you the line if you'd like.
No, I think I got it. I think it is, but I'm not in the way that it's implied. Like,
how do you think it's implied?
I think it's implied that, the Dementors are kind of scared of his anger, so we're going to stay backed off. And I don't actually think that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. I think Dumbledore is angry at the Ministry for putting the Dementors there in the first place. And so it's the Ministry that's afraid of his anger and therefore are keeping the orders to the Dementors to stay away. I don't actually think the Dementors care. I think their orders are to stay back because the Ministry is a little hesitant about the fact that Dumbledore is not happy about it.
Okay. So, again, after our Hogwarts radio stint last week, I've been thinking about some of these things differently. And so I took this almost literally. And in our chapter, this chapter where Harry is learning about Dementors from Lupin, we know that they're drawn to happiness, where they were drawn to the Quidditch match because of all of the cheering and happiness that they can drain. So the reverse of that, what if they're repelled by anger? I don't know. Like, what if it's like actually an emanating aura of anger that Dumbledore is projecting to, just keep the Dementors out of the castle? I don't know. I've never thought of it this way. I'm just asking, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think it would be less anger and more sadness because to me, the opposite of happy isn't angry. The opposite of happy is sad.
I think it could be either.
I don't really think anger has an opposite, to be honest. Because anger is usually directed at something. And so
can happiness, so can sadness.
But I don't think you can just be randomly angry. I think it's usually an effect of something. So my point is that I think if you're really thinking of opposites, it would be almost a sadness barrier. As in, I don't need to go in there because everybody's already depressed and terrible. Done. Work completed. Like a big dome of mopey.
Dome of depression.
Yeah, kind of. That encircles to kind of keep them out. I don't know. I don't know if I buy into that. I like the idea of it, but then it defeats the purpose of what Lupin was telling Harry about there being a way to attack against them, and it's very, very difficult. But then again, Dumbledore is very, very good. So maybe
exactly.
That is.
I'm thinking maybe it's not.
I don't know.
Maybe it's a more direct, like actively using his anger, and like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just thought it was an interesting thing that I read it this way this time. Final question for Chapter 10. Why would James Potter not have just had himself or Lily be the secret keeper?
Maybe you're not allowed to. Maybe the secret keeper has to reside outside of the house.
Maybe.
That's what I always assumed when I read this. Like, it has to be somebody else. It can't be you because you're in the house. You need somebody, like, holding that outside. That's what I always assumed.
Okay.
Any ideas on that?
No. With barring that stipulation, I think, why not protect yourself?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. And then, like, does something happen if the secret keeper dies? Does the
Yeah. Good. I mean, it's another one of those really big pieces of magic that is the first time we've heard about it. So I just don't know.
Which, honestly, these are like some of the things that make me love this world so much, is that it is so deep and so complex. And there's so many little pieces like this that do make you question and wonder, that it makes it more interesting to think about those deeper kinds of questions and suck you in.
I agree.
Right. Luke, what was your favorite line?
Messrs. Moody, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, purveyors of aids to magical mischief makers, are proud to present the Marauders Map.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, I was kind of flipping through, and then I was listening to it, and the way Jim Dale read it, I was very impressed. And it's like I said, this is a chapter that really sticks out to me throughout this whole book, which still holds up to be one of my favorite books of the entire series. Mm-hmm. And this is getting the Marauders Map is a bit of a game changer. Just like think of, hey, you know where everyone in the castle is. You know every secret passage. Like anyone can see the benefit of that tool. And I'm just excited to see Harry with it in his hands now.
Yep.
How about you?
I had two, so I'm going to give my honorable mention and then my actual favorite.
Okay.
My honorable mention says, the Gryffindor team visited again on Sunday morning, this time accompanied by Wood, who told Harry, in a hollow, dead sort of voice, that he didn't blame him in the slightest. It's so very Wood. It's such a great little itty-bitty one-sentence insight into his psyche of like, I get it. It's fine. It's fine. Nope. You're fine. Not your fault. But he is just completely dead and devoid of all possible happiness at that moment.
Right.
Because it's so depressing for him. His whole world has come crashing down. Literally crashing down because of Dementors. Therefore the depression. It's a whole thing. But I think that was a great, funny moment. But my real favorite line kind of goes with yours. And it's one that you might put on a wall or a book or an iPod cover or a variety of other things.
Or a Tervis cup.
Also, I think I have one like that.
I think you do.
In fact, I do. I'm not using it today. I'm using my Ravenclaw cup.
There you go.
But I do. And it says, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
It's a classic.
It is. You know, as soon as you hear that, oh, that's Harry Potter. Oh, and in my head, it's not Harry Potter. It's the twins. Mm-hmm. Because those are the voices I hear saying it in my head. Every time I read it, even when it's Harry, even when it's the twins. Mm-hmm. And they're serious.
Right. Not serious, but they are serious.
Yes. Seriously.
Yeah, no, that's one of those, you see that written somewhere, like, just no doubt it's a Harry Potter thing, because it's all over the place, and it's always fun to see that. That's one of those, if someone outside of the Harry Potter community saw it, they would understand, like, what it's saying, but they wouldn't understand the depth of, like, the whole Weasley Twins behind it and everything. It's definitely pretty neat. And the fact that they seem to figure all this out on their own. They don't have an instruction manual of how to use this map, which gets me into my chapter MVPs.
Yeah.
The Weasley Twins. I just, no doubt. This is another pretty easy one, I think. I think we've done a good job explaining why already. I don't know what else to add. They figured out how to use the map, on their own selves just by seeing it, figuring it out. And they've, again, taken Harry underneath their, wings as older brother figures, which he doesn't have. And, it's always good for him when they are looking out for him.
Yep. I always assumed that they just messed around with it and the map told them.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
It's almost like the map could read the hijinks capability, because it's seriously like, to get in, I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. You gotta think the guys who made the map probably appreciated a good trickster. Here they have the Weasley twins, right? Like, okay, these are my guys. We'll tell them.
Yeah, they're purveyors of aids to magical mischief makers.
And who better magical mischief makers do we know than Fred and George?
Yeah, absolutely.
Besides Gerd and Fred Forge.
Right, Gred and Forge. Classic.
Gred and Forge.
So who was your honorable mention this chapter?
Okay, so this is hard because I think the Weasley twins were so good.
Uh-huh. And I actually thought about just picking one of them so that you could pick the other, but I just couldn't pick one over the other, really.
No.
If I would pick George, because I kind of have a George crush, I think. But
I do too. I tend, because he's the nice one.
Right.
Like, he's funny without being harsh.
Yeah.
Fred tends to be a little more harsh. My honorable mention goes to Madame Rosemarta,
okay.
because in the scene at Three Broomsticks, she plays the audience member really well.
Yeah.
She gasps in all the right places. She asks all the right questions. The story that Fudge and some of the others are telling, it's a good story, but it's all of them kind of jumping in. But she's the perfect audience member.
Mm-hmm.
What? Oh, I remember. Oh, no, not. It's just like the
And ask the good questions too.
Yes.
Prodding the story along.
Yes. She just did a good job of making sure the whole story got out with just the right dramatic flair that the storyteller wanted.
Absolutely. It's a good way to do exposition.
That's right. As per the theme of this book.
Right.
Speaking of exposition and telling you things that you need to know, we have ways you can get a hold of us. We have said them many times before, so I'm just going to tell you. At the moment, your best bet, find us on Twitter, Not Named Podcast. Best place to find us. Check us out there or online at thepodcastthat.com.
Subscribe, rate, and leave us comments on iTunes and YouTube. We will see them. We will appreciate them. And that would be cool of you for us. Special thank you to a voice you probably recognize. You've heard him several times throughout these podcasts of ours. Riley, thank you for your imaginary summary for this chapter.
We will be back in a week with our 5-chap recap will be in 1 week, and then we will be back 2 weeks after that with chapter 11.
The Firebolt. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.